Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody today to the July 13th meeting of the IMAG-MSM Working Group on Multiscale Modeling and Viral Pandemics. We've had a lot happen in the past few weeks. I'm delighted to see so many people come back in the middle of the summer. We're going to be hearing today from Reinhard and Anna about the Immune Digital Twins workshop that they organized a few weeks ago. Today, instead of broadcasting from Bloomington, Indiana, we're broadcasting from Portugal, from the Azores Islands, from Ponta Delgada. So we're in a bit of a different time zone, so I appreciate everybody showing up. As always, I need to remind people that this meeting is live streamed on YouTube and is recorded and made publicly available afterwards. As always, Tom and I are available to take your comments, suggestions, complaints, ideas. Jim Sluka and Lorenzo as well. We appreciate everybody's effort to make these meetings work. We have our various communication channels. They work better if people use them. If people remember to use that MSM viral hashtag, that would be great. We definitely could update the IMAG MSM wiki page, and now that we have the glimprint.org page, we would really appreciate people's help populating that. If you want to help us out with that, that would be great. And we have our YouTube channel. We were a little bit behind on some of the videos. Those have been updated. I think last week's we do not have yet, but most of the videos are now up to date there. As always, if you look at those videos and you notice something in the annotation or editing that needs to be corrected, please do let us know. Again, we have a Twitter handle. Maybe that's not the most fashionable thing in the world, but maybe that's the tag can be used to help build the community. We do have, as I mentioned, the Glimprint website now, thanks to Tom Helikar. We would love it if you would help us build that website into something, and the Glimprint itself into something that we can take forward to build on the momentum of what Anna and Reinhard have done. Coming forward next week, we have a talk by Dan Crowley from Cornell. We are not going to meet at the beginning of August, August 24th. Gary will be giving us another talk. And then starting in September, we have a series of talks. As always, we would appreciate your suggestions for speakers. Remember, as always, to suggest yourself. For example, Veronica gave a great talk some time ago. She could definitely come back and give us another talk on another topic. Others may wish to do the same thing. Suggest yourself, suggest your students, your postdocs, the people whose written papers that you're interested in, the people you'd like to meet. The goal of these meetings is to build community, and the best way to do that, I think, is to have talks that people would like to hear. So I don't want to take any more time from the presentation and discussion. I will turn the share over to Anna and Reinhard to present the workshop. So
we want to tell you about what happened in May in Paris. It was, as always, when I first got into this, when Anna had this opportunity and asked people to join, I had no idea what it would involve, and it was massive, but also I think it was massively enjoyable and educational. And we want to tell you a little bit about that. So this was about the immune digital twins, to actually build them. Of course, many of you have heard about this idea. Digital twins, you have for our concept, you have a patient and you have some sort of computational representation of that patient, and the two are linked by data exchange, and you want to use the digital version of that patient, the computational model, to tell you something about the patient from the point of view of forecasting or treatments, or what to do to keep that patient healthy. That's the basic idea, and where we're at is we want to focus here on digital twins that involve the immune system in some way. One reason why we relatively early on focused on the immune system here on this workshop, as well as in the subgroup of this working group on immune digital twins, is that the immune system is involved in many of the important diseases, and one somehow needs to focus from this vast area of medical digital twins to something a little more focused. So what's required? There are three things that we need to focus on. Is one, of course, is building the models, generic simulation models of the human immune system, getting enough data to characterize a patient, and then linking the two. And in my mind, I think actually the third point, linking those two, may well be the most important and most difficult aspect of what needs to be done, because we know how to build models, linking these models to data derived from a patient, I think, is a really crucial thing, and that's also an important and difficult aspect in industry. So those are the three things that we need to do. And if you go to the next slide. The biggest challenge in my mind, even bigger than the three we just mentioned, is to actually create teams and communities that can do this, because they involve three quite different communities. In computational biology for the last 20-25 years, we've struggled, in my mind, and have still not succeeded in bringing together the community of modelers and experimentalists, biologists. And now we're adding clinicians to the mix, and medicine, and that produces immense challenges. And that, I think, was one of the major foci, in my mind, of what this workshop at Paris-Saclay was supposed to do, is bring these communities together. 3 weeks is a long time, and it's enough time to get people to talk. The idea of the workshop was to create an environment in which that could happen. And I do think that we succeeded to a larger degree than I would have hoped. First of all, in bringing people together, getting people to actually show up, and in having interactions between them. As you can see here, there's a long list of different kinds of expertise, from bioinformaticians all the way to policymakers, that need to come together here. And I think I'll turn it over to Anna, and she will tell you who all was there, who showed up.
Thank you, Reinhard, for the introduction. So the workshop actually came out of the discussions during my participation in this group. And while we were discussing about the initiatives and how we could come together, I saw that in my university environment, there was a call for organizing either workshops, high level, or educational programs. So we've discussed a lot, and Reinhard said, yes, why not? Let's undertake this challenge. So first of all, we proposed 1 week, because we thought that 1 week is sufficient enough. And then they told us that 1 week is not really possible. Then we said, okay, we will propose 2 weeks, maybe 1 week and a half. We will put some social events so people can actually take the time to come. And then the Institute Pascal came back and said, no, 3 weeks is the minimum. So we had different reactions, but all the reactions actually converged to one, like 3 weeks. This is crazy. So at first we thought that it was quite crazy, but then this is how all interesting things happen. And we said, why not? These people are giving us support to come together for 3 weeks and think. The nice thing about the Institut Pascal is that it's really a scientific hub dedicated to innovation, the development of new ideas. It is really an incubator of bringing people from different backgrounds together. And the idea is that they provide everything or almost everything. I will go into the details so that researchers, scientists can focus on something that seems really crazy, and they actually brainstorm together, they lay out a roadmap and they start to work. So the Institut Pascal was really enthusiastic about the idea of building an immune digital twin and about bringing people together from different communities, but also from different places in the world, from Europe and the US. And they were very supportive. So we had a lot of support in the scientific plan. They helped us a lot. And they also gave us advice from their own experience. However, I need to be honest, we improvised also a lot. And while we tried to accommodate everyone's suggestions, at the end, the shaping of the program, of the schedule, was a mix of people's availabilities, because not everyone could afford coming for 3 weeks, not money-wise, but most importantly, time-wise. So we had to actually accommodate people that would come and go and shape the program in a coherent manner from a scientific point of view to keep the interest and also allow sufficient time for real interactions. So I think it was one, I have organized many workshops and tutorials and also advanced courses, but this was something else. The complexity, the challenges, the different cultures also, but also the place that this workshop was organized were really pushing, we could say, the limits of what we had done before. So the Institut Pascal proposed to cover for us 40 to 60 participants originally. That would include accommodation, most of the lunches and breakfast and some social events and some buffets. So practically almost all things regarding to accommodation and food. And they would also give us space, actually a whole building that is new and very ergonomic. And the only thing that they could not cover was travel expenses. So at the end of the day, people only had to cover their train or plane tickets. There was no registration fee. We had a lot of discussions if we wanted to charge fees for pharma companies and industry. At first, we didn't know if we would have a lot of people coming because some people were very enthusiastic and some people were actually not so enthusiastic, saying that we are kind of doomed to fail because it's 3 weeks and it's going to be chaotic. And not many people would like to come for a conflict of interest, for competition, and so on and so forth. So we said yes anyway, and we discovered a building that was, I could say, great, in a very nice surrounding at the plateau of Saclay in the middle of the forest. Transportation was a bit challenging. There are no hotels really close to the Institute, so we had to go through hiking every morning and every night, and every morning through a very steep path through the forest. The first day was very adventurous. Hopefully James was there. Just to give you an example, we were like 10 people because we talk a lot online, but we had never met. And we didn't know each other. So we met in the forest when the satellite of the Google Map stopped. And we were all lost and we didn't really know where to go. And suddenly we would see people moving around and we would say, are you going to the workshop? Are you going to the workshop? So at the end, James came. He took the steeper path he could find. we almost died. I almost died there. And that was the first morning. So then we said, we survived this. It can't get any worse. And I think I'm right. So the Institute Pascal provided very nice facilities to help us. We had access to 2 amphitheaters. However, I need to say that we had several technical problems that we were not anticipating. So a lot of frustration and time went into making things work. So the hybrid part, the first week was not very successful. And also the presentations in the amphitheater had a lot of problems because it was not very evident how to use the system. We didn't have sufficient help. At the end, we managed, of course. It was another challenge. We wanted to build an immune digital twin. We should be able to find our way in presenting in an amphitheater. So it was a matter of honor at the end. But beside that, the facilities and the amphitheaters and also the systems were really state of the art. So once they started to work, everything was very nice. The Institute itself is a very nice building. It's only 4 years old or 5 years old. So it's really ergonomic and built with a modern architecture and with the collaborative spirit in mind, and with this vision that researchers and scientists do not need to suffer in places where there is no sun. So there was enough comfort. I cannot say that it was too much or too little. It was just the right amount, I would say, that would allow us to really focus on what we wanted to do, on work, being productive, but also spending some time getting to know each other, exchanging in a nice setting. We had many offices, so people who wanted to work, isolate, and not participate in the group activities, they could actually spend the whole day without seeing us. They had internet, access to interactive screens, and also more big rooms if they wanted to have small groups and work on specific projects. And we were particularly lucky. The weather was great, and we could actually profit from the outside, from the terrace and the veranda. So in terms of accommodation for the workshop, I think the conditions were really, really good. So we organized these 3 weeks with a mix of keynotes and roundtables, contributed talks, breakout sessions, and projects. I need to say we were quite ambitious. We didn't hold back. We were, I would say, overly eager to make this thing happen and to provide something that would be rigorous and interesting, because it's not very easy to keep people interested for 3 weeks. And we had many people who actually stayed for the whole program. And we also had sessions regarding innovation, open seminars, and also tutorials on the fly and on the fly training. So we had a schedule, but then the participants, we would start from 9:30, 10 to 5, and then participants were free to organize their time. And if they wanted to spend more time and use the building, do self-organized seminars, they were very welcome. And we had at least 2 or 3 of this type of interactions. So the broad goals of this initiative was actually to enhance communication, as Reinhard said, between clinicians, immunologists, experimental biologists, and modelers, and also create a transatlantic community. The viral pandemics group was heavily, let's say, populated by people from the US. We had people from Europe that were doing similar things. So the idea was to put them all together at the Institut Pascal and see what happens after 3 weeks. So how did it go? Actually, it went very well. We worked a lot together. First of all, to minimize communication barriers. We came from 19, 20 different countries. So for most of the participants, English was not the first language. We had more than 90 participants at the end, so more than double than what we anticipated. And I think we had a record budget of the Institut Pascal of since the launching of this educational program, 3 weeks call for educational programs. So it was really big also for the Institut Pascal. They went all the way in order to make it happen. So we spent some time the first week to shape a common language and to learn how to communicate effectively, which is not given. Especially after 3 years of COVID and isolation, where we had forgotten a little bit of how it feels like to be in an amphitheater full of people or be surrounded by people all the time. We had to see how we could manage our time, the space, and the resources effectively. And well, the goal was to collaborate, debate, exchange, discuss in a productive and effective way. We had many people with interdisciplinary backgrounds, so this challenge was accepted, and I think we stood up to it. We had immunologists, clinicians, engineers, mathematicians, informaticians, modelers, biochemists, pharmacists, whatever you want, we had it. We also had a very nice mix of early career and senior scientists. We had many students, PhD students and postdocs, and we also had many senior scientists. We had around 30 to 35% of women participation, which is good, but we could do better. And we also had some participation from Africa, which was mostly online due to problems of transportation. And we also had some people coming from India. So regarding the keynote panel, we had a nice geographical spread, gender balance, but also different thematics. So we had computational biologists and modelers, control theorists like Mustafa and also Jasmine for the computational biology. We had Julio Saez Rodriguez, expert in data integration, analysis, and also modeling. Emmanuel Barillot, who is the director of the computational team at the Institut Curie in France, in oncology. Maria Rodriguez Martinez, an expert in machine learning and artificial intelligence from IBM Zurich. Yaron Ilan from the University of Jerusalem, who is a top immunologist. Christine Reich from Fraunhofer Leipzig, who is working on cell therapy and immunology, mostly experimental work and some data analysis. We had Lisbeth, that was a bonus edition, and we were very happy that she could finally make it. Professor in biomechanics and computational tissue engineering at the University of Liège and Leuven. And Lisbeth is also the edit coordinator. I will talk about it a little bit later. And we also have Louise here that can facilitate this discussion. We also had a very interesting talk from Yves Balkansky. Yves Balkansky is the director of the Institut Pascal. He is a physicist working at the University of Paris-Saclay and at the Center of Atomic Energy in France, who gave us a high-level talk about climate change and about models and forecasting the climate change and what will happen, predictions about what will happen in this planet if we don't take action. So I think it was a very nice talk and people really enjoyed it. Regarding advanced talks, you will see many of us, usual suspects. So we had Reinhard. We also had François Fage from my INRIA laboratory at Paris-Saclay, Irène Vignon-Clementel, and I have not put here also Dirk Drasdo, also from INRIA, who are working on digital twins. Irène for cardiovascular disease, and Dirk for liver. Dagmar Waltemath from the University of Greifswald, who is an expert in clinical bioinformatics and ontology. She's also a very active member of the Combine community, so she's working actively in convincing people using standards and sharing data in a proper and fair way. We had Gary from the University of Vermont, James. We also had Gaëtan Nocturne, an immunologist, a clinician, a rheumatologist from the hospital of Kremlin-Bicêtre in Paris. That is a reference center for many autoimmune diseases. We had Thomas Helikar, who presented also the initiative in Nebraska and the effort in creating a generic immune digital twin. Benjamin Hall, who is an expert in cancer modeling from UCL. Annabelle Balesta from INSERM and also Institut Curie, who is an expert in pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic modeling, and also Asmund Flombak from the University of Norway, who is a clinician and oncologist, and gave us a very realistic presentation about what clinicians have to deal with, because at the end of the day, as Andrei Zinoviev said, for most of us, the patients are always virtual, but for the clinicians who actually are in front of the patients, they need to have tools that actually will facilitate their work. And then we had advanced tutorials, I would say demonstrations, and for some of them, some hands-on. So we had Laurence Calzone, Gauthier Stoll, and Vincent Noël, who presented the ecosystem of Physibos, Mabos, all these simulation platforms where you can go from simulating Boolean models to multicellular models. We also had Pedro Monteiro from the Technical University of Lisbon, who is a very active member in the logic-based modeling community. Sylvain Soliman and me, who discussed a little bit about static representations and disease maps and how you can turn them into executable Boolean models in an automatic fashion. Arnau Montagu from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, he discussed the Personalized Medicine European Initiative, but also the advances that they have done in the center in order to simulate I don't remember exascale. I mean, it's huge at this point, the computational capacities. Thomas, who presented Cell Collective, TJ, who presented CompuCell 3D, and we also had an on-the-fly tutorial from Michael Blinov from the University of Connecticut, who presented Copaze. So we had a lot of people from the industry and also the biotech, and we actually managed to have a very diverse and very top tier team. So we had Sanofi. We also had the help of Genopol. Genopol is a very big, it's the biggest biocluster in France. Biocluster is a public-private organization that helps, it's an incubator, a biotech incubator. We had people from Sanofi, from the data science department, from France and from Germany. We had Nicolas Gaudencio from Genoskin from Toulouse. Genoskin is a company for in vitro testing in skin models. We also had Vasilis Soumelis, who is he is a clinician and a researcher, a systems immunologist, we would say, who is now working in Orkin. Alexander Kuleza and Shiny Matis from Nova Discovery, Rachel Klipp and Brian Helba from Kitware, US and Lyon, Serkat Kola from Copenhagen, and Evoplexus Medics that gave us very interesting insights about policies and also academic and private sector collaborations, and also Andrei Zinoviev, that was formerly a co-director of the computational team and platform at the Institut Curie, and is now at Evotech Toulouse. So the action items and the deliverables that we had very broadly was to develop a conceptual map of a core immune system model, identify specific use cases for immune digital twins, modeling approaches and software, what needs to be done to validate the expanded model, determine which data are needed and how to acquire them, and write a paper or even a textbook. So what we actually did is that we, first of all, there is a website available, and all the talks of all the participants are available, including the workshops, the working groups that we had during the 3 weeks. An article on the workshop is in preparation. We have an advanced draft. I need to find some time with Reinhard. Probably this will be my vacation, let's say, companion for the next 4 weeks. We have more material produced from all working groups. Everyone worked really diligently and with a lot of enthusiasm. We have a lot of material in the design. Louise and James were particularly active in offering different conceptual designs for the immune digital twin system. We are also actively working on identifying relevant funding calls that would allow transatlantic collaborations. A first post-workshop virtual meeting of the participants will take place before the end of July. So we have a meeting at July 20 in order to discuss what we are going to do from September on, how to proceed with the material and the draft that we are working on. And we also have an active Slack channel where we can communicate on the fly with everyone. We also, I think one of the successes of the workshop in terms of perspectives is the fact that we had the opportunity to have very close exchanges with the EDIT coordinator, with Lisbeth and also Louise. Lisbeth is the coordinator of the European Virtual Human Twin Consortium. There are now discussions and we are also all invited to participate in these discussions and also how to contribute as a community, not only personally. With Gary and with some other people, we had some time to go through not the whole document, but some of it. The public consultation version of the first draft of the virtual human roadmap is open until July 15th. I don't know if Louise can tell us if Lisbeth and the others in the consortium would consider prolonging it a little bit, as this period was really heavily charged, and I think more people would contribute actively if they had a little bit more time. So invitations were sent to all workshop participants, and as we said, the goal is to create a European and a US-based IDT branch advanced together, coordinating with similar initiatives and efforts such as EDIT. So for the acknowledgements, we would really like to acknowledge the support from the Institute Pascal. It was enormous. We had a few problems, but if you look at it from a little bit, let's say, further, I think everything exceeded expectations. So the Scientific Council, Denis Sulmont, who was the first director, and Yves, who is the director now, were really supportive. We had administrative assistants, Aurélie and Vanessa, that were really full. And when our budget ran out, and we had a few participants that we really didn't feel we wanted to let them out, we asked Genopole, and Genopole kindly stepped in and helped us completing the budget in order to meet all requirements for all participants. So at the end, we ended up with 90 people. Very few people didn't make it to the workshop. So with Reinhard, we were the main organizers. Reinhard says I had the lion's share, but the reality is that I was the local one, so it is kind of normal. And also many people are not very fluent in English. So I had to be there and take care of many of the technical aspects, but everyone helped. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone, all participants really helped, because it was an enormous task to undertake alone, or even for two people, for me and Reinhard. And also the scientific committee. So we had people from this group, but also people from my lab at INRIA, and also from Curie as local organizers to help. And of course, we had a lot of coffee. So the coffee machines at the Institute really helped. I think people were, we had a lot of coffee breaks, and we were just consuming caffeine and caffeine and caffeine. And at the end, I think everyone was a little bit stressed. We were happy. I chose the nicest picture, but my hand covers Gary's face. People say it's intentional, it's not. And we have others. And also the real hero of the workshop was the comfort mic. So we had a lot of technical problems, and this mic saved not only the day, but saved the whole 3 weeks. And that was it from me.
So any comments and questions are welcome. In particular, those of you who participated, we'd love to hear your take on all of this.
Yes.
Well, first, thank you so much for doing it. It was tremendous effort. I'm only sorry I couldn't stay the full 3 weeks.
But I think you were really catalyzing discussions and doing your best while you were there. So I think this is what matters. I don't think we were expecting that everyone would have stayed for 3 weeks, and also from a budget point of view and accommodation, we wouldn't be able. So we had 90 participants, because people would come and go, and we would monitor their come and go, and we would say we have a room for 3 days here, we have a room for 5, and this is how we managed to actually have twice the number of participants that was originally scheduled.
I guess if I were going to learn and try to do something like this again, and I don't know whether I'd ever have the energy, I might have fewer talks or shorter talks.
Yeah.
Everybody
So
a 10-minute talk to introduce themselves, because the one thing I regretted a little bit was not having more time to work with people.
this is
I
true,
thought 2 weeks
but
was lots of time to work with people, but in fact,
no.
it
But
wasn't enough. You're right. The Institute Pascal people were right that 3 weeks is even 3 weeks isn't enough to really.
I think if we had the 4th week, we would have used it, honestly, and we would have finished the paper and at least one shorter document that was that people were really active and enthusiastic about the parameterization of the digital twins, that they were going crazy. They were really on a frenzy for 3 weeks. So we had a lot of discussions with Reinhard, and we really tried not to have a lot of talks. But when you invite people that are really high level, it's a very delicate subject to propose talks to some and not propose talks to others. And when people decided to come for 2 weeks, for example, or even for 1 week or for 3 weeks, they wanted to talk. We want to talk, people want to share what they're doing, not in an informal way. They want to be presented and showcase their work. The only thing I would change is that we wouldn't allow talks after lunch. I think if we could start earlier, 8:30, for example, but it was not very easy due to the transportation problems, and we had to anticipate people taking some time to have their breakfast and coming 25-30 minutes up the hill every morning. I mean, we wanted them alive at the end of the workshop. But I think all talks that were after lunch were killers. Killer mood killers, and also productivity killers. I mean, we were exhausted. After lunch, nobody could really follow some of the talks.
I wasn't trying to be critical. I was just trying to
No,
learn.
I know. You can be critical, actually, but
If I were to do it again, I'd say, okay, everybody gets to talk, but you get 10 minutes. And if you want to have an informal talk later, you do it, schedule it elsewhere. Of course, people might not like that, but it's the other way, of course, is something like what the Institute does, where it's a whole semester. It's 3 months or 4 months.
Yes, but people know, but people know each other, and they don't have I would say this many studied participants. So they will have 4 or 5 PIs, and the rest are mostly postdocs, early career scientists. So it's a different philosophy.
I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just thinking about.
Yeah, but 10 minutes.
I love the meeting, but I was thinking I really wish I'd had even more time to interact with people.
Actually, what we were discussing with Reinhard is that the only thing we would change is the number of participants. So we would limit the number of participants to 40 or 50 tops in order to facilitate communication, because if you give people 10 minutes to talk and people have never seen each other again, and one is clinician and the other is mathematician, it's not enough. You need time to absorb what other people are doing. It's not very easy. So 40 minutes or 35 minutes might have been too much, I think, for some of the talks. 30 minutes, I think it would be ideal, and no more than 50 people, and probably 2 weeks to manage the scale. Otherwise, it's just not feasible.
So did you feel that because people were coming in and out, that you lost a little bit of the connection throughout the 3 weeks? Or did you have somebody that in each working group that were there for the whole 3 weeks to be able to connect the dots? Because that's a very hard problem.
I didn't put the photos of the last heroes. I think Adam is here, Luis is here. Yes, we were actually the very last day, we were more than 25 people. The last day of the workshop, we were 25 people still there, and 18 or 20 of us were there for the whole 3 weeks. So yes, we had a core that was there from day 1 or day 2 until the last day of the workshop. But also people who could not participate for long, they were very active in Slack. And some of them were connecting through links that people from the working groups would set up on their own initiative, share, and through a Zoom connection, they would participate in the activities. So all participants were particularly active, also the keynotes. So very few people that came only for 2 days, for example, did not continue to be involved in one way or the other. People were really interested. But yeah, I see Luis, Kinza, maybe they can, Kinza was there for 3 weeks. Luis was there for 3 weeks. The other Luis was there for 3 weeks. Adam, I think he was for 2 weeks. I think they are the most more appropriate to talk. I see Tamar has a question.
Yeah, first of all, your description is really whetting my appetite, although I know very little about digital twins. And I have several questions. One is a wish that the tutorials are also documented and available, because they're very important. the other one is a little bit weird, maybe. I feel that artists should be invited there too.
Yes, actually,
And
one
also-
one
and
artist was
also-
invited.
And also physicists. Although you mentioned the director is a physicist, but he talked about something that is very important, but not directly related. So physicists may, as you know, may contribute important angle.
We had one, Rachel Clip, I think, from Kitware, is a physicist, and she was the one who discussed the platform for the physiological scale simulations, if I'm not mistaken. So we had a few, and we
of
had,
course, James.
of course, James. Yes, we had a few, but I will say they were hiding the physicist background, and also we had a physicist student, Panayotis, from the University of Patras, Greece, who was a pure physicist. And he said, this sounds so interesting, but I know nothing of digital twins, immunology, or modeling. Can I come? And he came for 3 weeks also. So we had a few, but definitely they were not the majority of the participants.
And I have another wonder that may sound very strange and ignorant. And this is classical studies of twins. In medicine, people learn a lot from following them and seeing the common, surprising directions and decisions that they make, even if they are far away from one another, and also some differences. And I wonder if something like this is relevant here, because this is digital and computational. So
the only thing I can comment here is that we don't really know how the human immune system works. So it's very hard to compare.
So it's too early.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know if it's too early, but we're not there yet. I don't know if it's too early or we are too late in doing things. But in any case, to my knowledge, there is not a concrete answer to that, because we are lacking knowledge in many parts of the immune system mechanisms. And this was very evident during the pandemics. We realized that we don't really know how we respond, how our bodies respond either to a virus that is more virulent from others, or to vaccines that are made using a new technology. So I think this was an inspiration for many of the working groups that popped up after that, and many of the initiatives.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Itamar. I see Lucira, yes?
Hi, thank you for summing up. It sounds like an amazing experience. So sometimes during our meetings online, we've had sort of a tension with modeling versus artificial intelligence. And the digital twin seems like it should be like an ideal fusion that, you know, both are possible. Did you see any of that tension, or how did that happen during the workshop?
Can I give an honest reply?
Yes, please.
We didn't allow this tension to happen. So when the first, let's say, a little bit of tension was shown, we channeled this energy to very productive debates. So we had debates, but not a lot of tension. And at the end, I think all people agreed that that we need to use both. But I have also two comments. The workshop was heavily biased towards mechanistic models. First of all, because this is what we do, this is our background, and it was easier to bring people in. So we brought people from our own communities, and naturally these people were having similar interests. We also made an effort to build days around artificial intelligence. It was not very easy, but we had people that were using machine learning, for example, models, especially in the pharma domain or in the private sector, in the biotech domain. And we also had Maria Rodriguez Martinez, who is using AI for immune digital twins in IBM Zurich. But Maria came late to the party. She came a little bit towards the end because she had very few availabilities during the dates. So she was not present for animating this type of discussions. And for this reason, 11th of September, we will be in Basel, and we will be organizing, but this time only for one day, not 3 weeks, only for one day, a full day workshop on mechanistic and AI-based immune digital twins. And we believe they are two sides of the same coin. So there we are more towards the AI and machine learning to leverage a little bit the 3 weeks mechanistic modeling views that we were seeing here.
Well, I'm glad I asked. Is there any virtual option for that?
Actually, no, but there is no virtual registration, for example, but I can see with the co-organizers, if you're interested in participating, in any case, it's up to us. We will have a Zoom link. If you would like to participate, please contact me, and I will see if we can set up a Zoom link quickly so that you can participate from remotely.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments from people who participated or who did not? Did you get much feedback from the graduate students and postdocs?
So I see Kinza here. She laughs. Kinza, come on.
I'm not a postdoc, but
No, but you stayed the whole 3 weeks. You're a PhD student.
yeah,
How was it for you?
actually it was really nice. Even it was a high level actually. I learned a lot. Had good discussions with all the participants. It was really nice. But I would hope if it will be for more time. For example, next time if we will have, maybe the last week we can write more white papers and discuss more, because in the first 2 weeks we were just knowing each other and trying to understand each other, you know.
So you would have liked the 4th week. This is what you're saying.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the difference between the youth and the not so young anymore, we would say. So
Yeah,
3 weeks, 3 weeks and going.
Well, so that's another option, of course, is to learn from this, which is maybe, again, something Santa Barbara, they do a whole semester, like the Institute. You only have a few core people, senior people who are there for the whole time, but the students can come for the whole semester.
This is not a bad idea, actually. I will be
So that it's
setting up
more training, it's more educational. You have 1 week workshops or 4-day workshops where you bring a lot of people in. And then between those, you have training and intensive work by the students and postdocs. I think Luis is also Luis, you're a postdoc, right?
Yep. And I would stay for the whole semester.
Maybe you could, we talked quite a bit during the meeting, but not enough, I know. But maybe you could give some opinion too, because most of the people who've come today are senior people. And I'd very much like to understand how we can really engage the students, even undergrad. I mean, I shouldn't say even undergraduates, because sometimes undergraduates are extremely engaged and creative too.
We actually had the three
That's amazing.
undergrads.
So Luis, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your experience, especially what we could do to make the next meeting, whatever it is, more productive for you.
Yeah, okay. I guess reducing the talks would be great, but I'm not sure about reducing the time of the talks, because sometimes it takes a lot of time to get to know about a topic. So I guess the 1 hour talks were okay, were nice, but maybe less talks. Putting the talks in the morning and letting people talk to themselves in the afternoon would be great. I agree with James when he said that we could use more time to work with people, to discuss ideas, to talk about concepts. And from my perspective, I'm very new in the digital twin field, and it was really amazing to have high-level talks and discussions about concepts as well. So, I mean, for me, it was really, really productive. But I would stay for the whole semester if it's the format for next year, for example.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So we were thinking about reducing it to 1 week, and now you're proposing a whole semester. I mean, this is a crazy feedback.
Yeah.
Well,
But I mean,
Institute
it
would
can be
take
like
this if you proposed it.
it can be a week with the PIs or 2 weeks with the PIs, and then we stay for the rest of the semester working together, the young researchers and just a few senior, you know.
Yeah, my brain is working now.
You could break the weeks into clinicians, mathematicians, modelers.
But we don't want them separately. We want them together. They have a tendency to form clusters on their own, but the idea is to push them to talk to each other.
But that way you could, we could have on and off weeks. And so
one of the problems is time availability, because everyone has a lot of obligations. For example, in Europe, we have an amount of teaching that is crazy, and a lot of administrative tasks and a lot of obligations about committees and juries and all of these things. And also clinicians have a very tight schedule. For me, for example, it was amazing that Gary could come. Many people appreciated his presence and talk and his enthusiasm and his debates, passionate debates after every presentation. But I would imagine that it's not something that he could easily do on a regular basis because his day-to-day obligations are very tight and very specific. And also students, depending on their year, they need to focus on, I don't know, publishing their paper, having their committees, writing their manuscript. I was contacted by some supervisors that they would tell me that it's 3 weeks. Can the student come for 1 week because it's the final year of the PhD and all of these things. So there are many different constraints that are not easily manageable or anticipated.
Well, one thing you said, Anna, is that if you're looking for a smaller group, then maybe you accept that some people won't participate.
Yeah.
But only the people who can do the things that you.
I think for me, the way I see it is that it's a pity I didn't have a lot of time, and I apologize for that, to properly present the working groups, because the working groups did an amazing work during the 3 weeks and especially during the third week. and they presented very high-level projects that they were able to put together in a very short amount of time. And it was amazing also to see that people who didn't know each other 2 weeks ago, they were working like they were working, I don't know, forever in the same lab. And that was very inspiring, but also we could see the real impact, because at the end of the day, this is the real impact, what these people took back to their labs, to their projects, to their teams, how this will shape their future projects, our collaborations, and so on and so forth. So we were ambitious for the workshops, and but the participants were very eager to tackle many different aspects. So we had parallel breakout sessions, and people were not very happy because they wanted, for example, to work on multiple aspects and not just having to choose. But at the end, 3 weeks was not enough. And we had to kind of push people to populate all the working groups, so to have even a little bit of material as a basis to work on. But what also people suggested, and I find it nice, is that instead of having working groups, we could have working group sessions in the amphitheater in the form of debate, where we would advance together as a community. This, if it works, is very good. But as you saw also from the attempts to moderate people, even for the panel discussions that were very smaller in terms of size, it was not a very easy job to do. It's really demanding physically and also mentally to animate 60 or 70 people for a whole day or for a whole week. It's not an easy job to do. So if we would like to do that, then we would need to have a dedicated team of 5 or 10 people that will actually share the load and help animate the community. So it was the first workshop. It was our first attempt to shape the community. Now that we know each other, I think it will be easier. It will get easier as we move on.
I think as a learning experience also, I think you're right that if you, at the beginning, it said first the talks are optional. Really, it's the working groups that are core. And then maybe we'd spent the first day really working out, the first half day work, or maybe
but you cannot work, but you cannot shape working groups if you don't have talks that will set everyone to the same level, tone, set the vibe. People come from different backgrounds and also from different levels. You cannot put them in one room and tell them work on an IDT concept. I think that the working groups were productive because the talks were so high level and the discussion panels and the roundtables were so productive and inspiring and challenging that people got so many ideas that wanted, to put them in writing or to continue the discussions. So I think the talks really played a key role, but they were overwhelming. This I agree.
I think I'm not saying that you don't need some talks. I'm saying maybe if I were, and of course you did a great job, but it's just a difference maybe in taste. If I were going to do it again, I would do it. I'd push the working groups. I'd really try to jumpstart the working groups earlier. And yes, you might have people in the room just saying we don't know each other, but getting people really together. Again, if you have more time, then you have time to have people be more organic. But I think maybe pushing the working groups a little bit more, saying this really is the core, might work, be possible. It's a different model. It's not that there's a right or a wrong. It's just different. But I think
I really have yes, but it's true. I have a hard time, let's say, imposing. We had this discussion if we should pre-form the working groups. So just assign people to working groups, and everyone said yes. But I said no. I don't know if I did well, but I said we are all adults. They should choose where they want to go. And if one group has more people than the other, then we will just live with it. But I mean, it's pro bono work. People should be able, to work in the question or the aspect that they feel they want to. I don't know, but at the end we had the opposite effect. Everyone wanted to work in every working group, so even if we would assign them to groups, they would still be happy. So honestly, I don't know what would be the best way to go about it. I'm still learning. Reinhard, what do you think? It was very interesting because at first Reinhard had a different, I would say, vision. He was like, Anna, we should let people self-organize. And I was like, no, they won't. We need to organize everything. And at the end, I think it was somewhere in the middle, the golden solution, the golden formula for people to actually work.
I'm continually proven wrong with this self-organization principle.
Yeah, you are.
So imposing structure probably is a good thing. I just want to comment on what Ruchira put in the chat here. So I do have experience with these institutes, quite a bit of it, and I've attended a number of the programs there. So these are institutes mostly focused on mathematics of some sort, with different flavors attached to it. They're funded by the National Science Foundation, and they're sort of like Institut Pascal, but set up for mostly semester-long programs that bring postdocs, early career researchers, some senior researchers together with some workshops. So there it's more segregated. You have maybe 2 or 3 one-week workshops that bring in maybe 40 people. And the rest of the time you have a smaller contingent of people who are there, some spending the whole semester there, that do more of that work. And I think it's a great idea. In fact, when we were talking, Roger, I thought exactly of maybe one of these things. The problem with these institutes is that they have a very long lead time in applying for programs, but they might be quite suitable for something like this.
Thanks, Reinhard.
Okay.
So I think Veronica asked for the talks. So the talks were not recorded for obvious reasons. So people needed to feel safe to present and publish the results. And also we had a lot of people from the private sector with a lot of constraints. But we have all the PDFs. So you can have access to the slides of all participants for all 3 weeks. And this I can probably send the link to Lorenzo, and he can send it to everyone. And I can also send you the link to the September workshop.
Okay. Any other final questions or comments? This was very, very helpful. Well, I want to thank you, Anna and Reinhard, again.